Hi guys, my name is Noni Matikela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to talk about Umnisi, and I want us to do a analysis of what was happening when he was closing the case and how people perceived him and what people thought. I saw comment section. There was a lot of things that were being said and it was different views from different people. Some were negative, some were positive, some were just neutral. Anyway, for me, when the defense stops talking and the law starts speaking for itself, it's the best time ever. It is the best time ever because that's exactly what Umnisi did there. There are moments in criminal trials where you don't need to make a noise. You don't need to make a noise. And it was one of those moments. What Umnisi did after what happened with Jadrata, asking him the same question, where is the witness, repeatedly? What else was Messi supposed to do? The only thing that he knew how and knew that it's going to work very well for him. He did not shout. There was no shouting from his side and no objections, no drama. And yet those moments in that courtroom changed everything. This was one of them, Kesana, because when Advocate Mnisi stood up and closed the defense case for Muzi Sibiya, many people misunderstood what they were witnessing. Some thought it was surrender. Others called it being reckless. Some even said it was Nisi being scared. But those reactions came from emotions, from people that were emotional, not from the law books. And Umnisi is about the law books, procedures. That's what he's about. Because what actually happened was this: the defense stopped participating in a process that was already collapsing under its own weight. He knows that to advocate Umnisi. He knows exactly what is happening in that courtroom. This was not him being silent or him being silenced. No, this was him making his very own statement as the representative of IQ's number one. And I am sure the conversation that he had with IQ's number one was one of the proper conversations, that was one of the needed conversations for IQ's number one to understand where they are standing. And what that conversation they had, the conversation that we did not even hear with our own ears, it was between the two of them. They had it together. The consultation that was heard between them was proper and there was an understanding. As much perhaps Umuzi was like, I wanted this one witness to come and, but he's not here. He's not here. And they are giving good reasons why they are not here. So now, with what we have, I think with Gwabini's evidence, with Absalom Zungu's evidence, with Makosonke Zungu's evidence, Muzi did very well. Even himself, when he was witnessing for himself, giving testimony for himself, he did a great job. He did a great job. What we did now, something else is happening here. When the Lord enters the house, when the Holy Spirit enters, the control is no longer onto us. He will control, he will maneuver things in a way that we won't understand when it happens. But when we see the end results, we'll be like, oh, makes sense now. But at the time, it was not making sense. Do you understand? Because something shifted there, whether emotionally, psychologically, or whatever, Kali, but something shifted there in the center of the trial. Something shifted, whether emotionally or psychologically, but there is a shift that happened. And maybe other people are asking why closing a defense case is not a weakness. It's not. I agree with that. I saw people arguing there in the comment section or on Tuesday. I saw all of that. But what I want to say, let's start with the basic legal truth that many people forget. In criminal law, the defense does not have to prove anything. Doesn't matter if it's Jadrata's court that has its own ways of doing things, but even he himself, he knows the defense has nothing to prove. No innocence that they must prove, no alternative story that they must bring, not who the real killer is. the burden rests entirely on the state side. They must prove whatever needs to be proven. They are the ones that must prove things. If the state fails to prove its case beyond reasonable doubt, the accused must be acquitted. Even if questions remain, even if the truth feels unresolved, that's not a loophole. That's the Constitution. So when Mnisi closed the defense case, he wasn't saying we have nothing more. That's not what he said. He was saying the state has already failed anyway, so no worries on our side. And once that point is reached, continuing becomes dangerous. The bottom line is that when it comes to Muzi Sibiya, the Zungus that came, they did prove that Umuzi Sibiya was framed. Umuzi Sibiya had nothing to do with the 26th of October. They were never in the same case, in the same environment. That's what they proved. They actually proved that. And the second thing that every witness did there, I mean, or else let me put it this way, the other thing that we need to look at is that every witness is a weapon against you. Every witness. Here is something the public rarely sees. They rarely see that. Every witness the defense calls in is not just their witness. They become the state's opportunity. So that witness can be used against you. So if right now, calling this witness that went AWOL, Uchiko saw it, the Almighty saw it fit that we don't need him, who are we to argue with that? Cross-examination is where weak cases are repaired. It's where contradictions are softened. It's where broken timelines are patched. It's where uncertainty is turned into confidence. Mnisi understood this. He understood that unreliable witnesses, unavailable witnesses, compromised witnesses don't protect the accused, but they expose him. So I'm not saying the witness that went AWOL was going to expose Muzi or whatever. All I'm saying is that if he's not available, things are looking shaky and stuff, it's okay. Let it go. Every extra witness is a door. And every door you open, the prosecution walks through with a knife ready. Okay? So he slammed the door shut, Mnisi, not emotionally, not theatrically, not deliberately, but the door was shut. And I'm glad that they reached that point. We are okay this side. We are okay this side. Now everyone is having questions. Why not call all the people that were perhaps inside the house? Why he was there or not? This is where emotions and law collide violently. That's where they collide. Many people are asking, why didn't the defense call everyone who was in the house the night Senzo Meyiwa was killed? For what? Was Muzi inside the house? No. There's no need for that, especially when it comes to Muzi. Perhaps in Gendan's case, perhaps in Kelly Kumalo, accused number 3 case, yeah, maybe they can call a Kelly Kumalo, Kelly's mother along. I don't know. Perhaps for me, they can only call Kelly Kumalo only, by the way. No one else, just Kelly Kumalo. Here is the uncomfortable truth when it comes to the people that were inside the house. Those occupants were already aligned with the state's narrative. We know this. In Trudeau story, they are aligned with that in their statements. Calling them would not have exposed new doubt. It would have given the state second bite at the apple. Let's be clear, the state already had them. The state already relied on them. The state already failed to extract a coherent, consistent, reliable story. The failure belongs to the state, not the defense. So the defense does not need to call them. They don't need to. The defense is not obligated to fix investigation incompetencies. The defense is not required to strengthen a weak prosecution. Nope. The defense is not a backup plan for the state. No. If the prosecution failed to conclusively test those witnesses when it mattered. That failure stays where it belongs, at the failure. It must stay there. So the people there in the comment section who were busy asking, why didn't they call about Kelly? Why didn't they call Ulongwe? Why? Maybe for Moses Themba Sibiya, Muza ukhulelwa Themba Sibiya. No, it was not needed. It was not needed. But there is something that happened in that courtroom. A psychological shift happened. This is where things get interesting. Up until that moment, the spotlight was on witnesses, testimony, explanation, excuses. When the defense closed, the spotlight moved. Because Uchadrata was like, no, we still need these people. We still need to put these people into perspective. Ababaloy, I'm sure they were preparing for people that must come. Now it's on. Evidence, contradictions, missing links, the burden of proof, and most importantly, judgment. Mnisi essentially told the court, judge this case on what exists, not on what never materialized. Focus, Judge Rata. When you are judging Muzi, you are going to judge him on what you have. Focus. That is not defensive, that is confidence. He was being just confident. He is telling the bench, the record is complete, the damage is done. No amount of testimony can repair this case. Deal with it. That is what Umuzi Sibiya did there. And that move, it was a gamble. It was a gamble, yes. Let's not romanticize it. This was a gamble. If the court values suspicion over evidence, also if the court feels the defense should have done more, allows emotion to fill evidential gaps, then this move may be criticized. But if the court follows settled criminal law, the burden of proof, the standard of reasonable doubt, then the decision should become the turning point of the entire trial. Because the courts are not allowed to convict on vibes. They are not allowed to convict on discomfort. They are not allowed to convict based on someone must pay. They must convict only if the state prove its case. Did the state prove its case? Did they? What does this mean for Muzi Sibiya? So let's answer the central question honestly now. Has enough been done for Muzi Sibiya legally? Yes. The defense exposed contradictions, investigative failures, unverified statements, missing causal links. Mnisi did not build a new story. He dismantled the state story, and that is not cowardice, that is discipline. He dealt with them. Now, the story of the party at the hostel, Basutu Hostel, dismantled, it's lies, and the timelines, lies, it's 2017, when there actually was a hostel gathering. It was not even a party, because also the occupants of the hostel at the time, they are not there. Uma Kosonke said, the people that were there are not here because these people, starting from number 1 to number 5, were not there. That was restraint. Mnisi did well, guys. That was not fear. This was restraint on its own. It was standing on its own. Here is what this moment was not. It was not Mnisi panicking. It was not Muzi Sibiya panicking. It was not a retreat. It was not Mnisi saying whatever. It was Mnisi just saying, guys, it is what it is. Let's deal with it. It was just that. It was Mnisi saying, it is what it is. Let's deal with it. It was not a retreat. It was not panic. It was not exhaustion. This was him restraining. He was just saying, I am done for Sibiya. My Lord must see what to do. Mnisi did not shout. Mnisi didn't posture. Mnisi didn't perform. He closed the book and placed it right back at Baloyi's desk. Now the court must read what's inside. That's it. From this moment on, the trial is no longer about witnesses. It is about whether the state met its burden, whether the doubt remains, whether the law is followed. This is not theater. This is not strategy for likes. This was a criminal defense at its purest. Sometimes strength is knowing when to stop talking. And that is exactly what UMNISI did. And I believe in him. If you value principles, defense, courtroom, courage, accountability in high-profile trials, like this video, subscribe for real courtroom analysis, share it so the truth reaches beyond this courtroom. Comment below. Please make sure you comment. Do you agree that defense closing at this stage, or should they have pushed further for Mmusi Sibiya? I believe that UMNISI did a great move, and Mmusi did a nice call there. And Umuzi agreeing with this was also a nice call. What are your thoughts? Let's talk in the comment section. I will see you on our next video. Bye-bye.